Hello and welcome to Bloomberg Quint. My guest today is Mr. Anand Stanley, MD Airbus India. Anand, I understand that this is the first interview after you took charge of Airbus in India, right?
This is my first formal interview, and thank you very much for having me.
To begin with, I want to start off with the commercial operations of Airbus, especially commercial aircraft. How are you seeing the business growing? Because the Indian aviation market is a little tough at this point in time, especially for airline companies.
Well, I believe that we still have not really scratched the surface in India, and the potential is tremendous. Let me put it in perspective. We have about 300 million middle-class people in India, and about 90% of them have still not set foot on a plane. And so it's only about 10% of that. And 99% of them have not been involved in international travel. So I believe there's a huge amount of untapped potential. You look at the load factors on the aircraft, irrespective of what, and all the planes are full. And as we are adding planes more and more, the main constraint is infrastructure. So I believe that irrespective of the challenges, which may be global in nature, we still have a huge potential. Let me add another data point. I just found out last year that Indians had taken 8.1 billion trips by train. 8.1 billion trips by train. When it pales when you compare to the number of tickets sold. So I think the future is extremely bright.
But are you worried about the kind of price undercutting that's happening in the industry and that's leading to bleeding of many of the airlines? We have a couple of airlines, of course they don't have exposure to you, but they're still in a financial mess. Is that a worrying sign for a manufacturer like you?
Well, there is airline health and profitability, and there is aviation demand. And sometimes they're connected and sometimes they're not. At this point of time, there are more people who want to fly than there are planes or than there are airports. So anytime there's a flight that's available, it will be full in India. That is irrespective of airline profitability. Now, I'm also the chair of FICCI for aviation. And to me, it is important to have a healthy industry. India is still on the exponential growth phase. Hence, we are still finding airlines tweaking their business models at this point of time. Obviously, it's in everyone's best interest, not just as Airbus, but also as an industry, that the airlines are profitable and that they are pricing to be able to be sustainable. That being said, we are a capitalistic society. It's not. I believe that price will correct, and airlines will figure it out. I don't believe that will impact long-term growth.
And what is the kind of order book you're seeing for Airbus in India?
So, as you know, as of last year, we were very proud that we had done 67 deliveries to India alone, which is more than one aircraft a week. In fact, towards the end of the year, we were doing almost two plus aircraft a week.
This is on an overall basis of around 800 or something, which you did last year? On a global
out
basis?
of the 800, so that is a good number. That's about 8% of the global deliveries. So that's very impressive, and we're very proud of it. That India is really one of the
How is the schedule looking now and future order book for you?
So we still have a backlog of over 500 aircraft that are still to be delivered to India, and that will be over the next few years. So I think that still, if you look at the rate that we were talking about previously, we're still talking about a few years to go. But we are confident that at the rate that India is growing, with the staggering numbers that I've told you, in terms of the untapped potential, the number of people who want to fly, the number of airports that are being added. The Airports Authority had planned another additional, depending on which report, 70 airports or 100 airports. Could be 24 airports in the next 3 years, could be 100 airports over the next 10 years. So with all this infrastructure, and Airbus is a technology company too, so we are heavily involved and partnering with the Indian government to see how can we help with airspace management, with air traffic management, with slot management. We are there to support, even if it is pro bono, on these activities, so that we can alleviate the concerns regarding capacity. So I believe that the growth is inevitable, and at the end of the day, we have to be in India, not just as a market, but as a base. to grow here.
India has been a good sourcing market for you for the global supply chain, right? My understanding is that you had outsourced roughly around $500 million of products or aerostructures from India or Indian companies in the last 1 year. How is that market looking for you? Do you see the ecosystem growing fast enough within India, and how do you see the growth going forward for that market?
Sure. So since the last Aero India, we have procured over $1 billion of Make in India, Design in India, Innovate in India, Skill India, products and services. Over the last 2 years, we have done that. Very proud to let you know that we had some of the senior most procurement executives of Airbus. Now, Airbus buys over $50 billion of parts per year. $50 billion of parts per year. And the most senior executives of Airbus are in Bangalore today.
There's a procurement day happening.
We had a procurement day. We had over 120 participants. The CEOs of almost every Indian aerospace and defense or services or technology or digital transformation company were there today. And we were talking to each other about how can we accelerate this? How can both companies, the vision for Airbus is to be more Indian. And the vision we had given each of our partners is to be more global.
So from 1% of the total requirement which we have today, right? How do you see that going up to a significant percentage going forward? Are the Indian companies good enough to scale it up to that level to get, say, next 5 to 10 years, 10% of the sourcing coming in from India?
Sure. So the Indian companies are world-class in certain areas. And I think we have to build on those strengths. The areas where we are world-class are in the area of technology, in the area of IT, in the area of innovation, in the areas of certain engineering services, in the area of talent. When we talk about data scientists, artificial intelligence, machine learning, where there are profiles which are in great dearth, India is extremely strong. And I believe we have to build on these strengths rather than focus on some of our weaknesses. And as long as we build on these strengths, we will be able to get a larger share of the global pie in aerospace, defense, and technology. Now, in manufacturing, to be frank with you, the lower end of manufacturing, we find that there are a lot of other countries with larger installed supply bases, which are traditional. And those installed supply bases are, to be frank, they have economies of scale over us. We have certain high-tech companies here, even in the manufacturing side, which are investing in our technology strengths, such as Industry 4.0 and robotics, human interface, and augmented reality and artificial intelligence, where they're able to bring that in to again make us world-class. I think that is a strong area where we should focus on technology plus highly skilled talent base. And to be frank with you, I believe, and this is an individual, as an individual I would speak and say, India's promise is in leapfrogging, focusing on its technology superiority and leapfrogging the manual nature of manufacturing and going to the next level of manufacturing. I think we can leapfrog that, and that's where the real promise stands and where we can compete and be much more global than anyone else. Another area which is a frontier which is still not started is we see a huge potential in terms of defense and space manufacturing.
That's the area which you've been focusing on, and last 4 to 5 decades you've been trying to get a foot into that area, which is huge, but you have not been so successful in that area, right?
So anywhere in the world when we are talking about defense procurement, it is a process, and the sovereignty of the process and the integrity of the process takes precedence over anything else. And we respect that process. We have a couple of programs we are talking about. One is the Aero replacement, which we are in the process very much so.
Who are you partnering with? Is it local?
We are partnering with the Tatas on that.
Okay, Tata Advanced Systems.
With the Tata Group on that. And we are right now, we have concluded commercial negotiations and we are in the process of that. And we're optimistic about it, and that That program will be a sole factory that we will construct in India, and we'll manufacture. And what it does is, when you put an ecosystem like this, you will create about 2,500 jobs, and you will create about 8,000 skilled jobs in the ecosystem. So that gets created not only to manufacture the aircraft, but also the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and it becomes a sole factory for export. The same thing with the helicopters. We've just received the EOI for the NUH helicopter.
This is not the SP program. This is a separate one.
This is again, we have a partnership with the Mahindras in this, and we are very excited about it, and we believe as we progress through it, and once the contract is awarded, it's a competitive bid. There are multiple other people.
Where are we on that process?
We have just received the expression of interest, EOI. But as we progress through the process, again, there will be a helicopter manufacturer in India, which will have a multi-tier impact on the ecosystem of India. All these programs, you cannot, I cannot emphasize the impact they will have on I would say the multiplication effect on the aerospace supply chain.
So when you say that you're going to have manufacturing here, it will be a full system integration happening in India, or is it again going to be, aerostructures been made and assembled overseas and brought into India?
So this is a sole factory, not a satellite factory. So the actual, there will be only one factory in the world, and that will be in India. And then the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 will be in India. And below the factory, there is a minimum requirement of 40% of the next level to be also sourced from India, not from outside. So it will be quite deep in all these cases, which should give us a lot of hope and optimism in terms of the trickle-down impact it will have, not only on the manufacturing base, the supply chain, but also on the skilling, which is the biggest, I would say, advantage, or the biggest benefit we would get from this program.
And we have seen these kind of programs coming up again and again, and for over a decade, you had the helicopter program coming in, and then there were issues with it, and then they get scrapped. Do you, as a manufacturer, do you get frustrated with the kind of pace at which these programs are run? The lack of transparency maybe at some time, or the slowness in taking decision. How are you dealing with that, and what's your view on it actually?
No, I'm not frustrated, and we are not frustrated as Airbus. We are committed. We are committed. We are fully committed. We are patient, and India is a base at the end of the day. It's not a transactional market, and I would actually speak as the chair of FICCI, not only on behalf of Airbus, but on behalf of all my colleagues in the other areas, that not just Airbus, almost all the companies on the FICCI are fully committed. I think there's a very healthy competition among all the companies as to who can invest more through that commitment, but it's a win for India. And the Indian process is quite sacrosanct and airtight, and it has a lot of integrity in it, the procurement process. The process itself has a lot of strength in it. Even though we have not benefited in an award yet, we believe it has a lot of strength in it. Secondly, the end users are extremely sophisticated. They know what they want. They want the best-in-class equipment, and they're very, very clear about the kind of capability they want to create. So you have a highly sophisticated end user, some of the finest armed forces in the world. You have a very rigorous process, and we just have to be committed to it. And we are seeing a build-up of demand. We are seeing a build-up, and those who have endured it across the board have reaped the benefits of this. Those who have committed themselves to be partners of India. So it truly is, I'm very excited, I'm very optimistic, and I can see myself in a few years sitting down in front of you, talking to you about what a fruitful journey it has been.
So is it fair to say that Airbus will be more aggressive in pushing or bidding for defense orders hence here on? I mean, the last few decades, we haven't seen that kind of aggression coming in from Airbus. You had other, players in the market, and now you are putting in food, and that means that there would be more aggression coming in with respect to going out, all out, and bagging those big ones.
I wouldn't use the word aggressive at all, actually. I wouldn't say we would be more aggressive. The word I would use is committed. And commitment goes beyond aggressive. We are a technology company, and commitment goes in terms of footprint. Commitment goes in terms of design footprint, innovation footprint. I think we will grow our design and innovation footprint, our technology footprint, our incubator footprint in India, because these will form the foundation. And we will build on top of it in terms of the manufacturing footprint as and when the awards start to come. So I think Airbus is committed, and as we are having a lot of, we're spending time, and the management is now, we're getting a new management place, we're seeing greater clarity of vision for India. And the vision and commitment is what I think will benefit us more than short-term tactical aggression. One thing I would also tell you is compliance and ethics are extremely important for Airbus, which is another reason why aggression is probably not a word I would use. I would say a lot of healthy respect for the process, healthy respect for the integrity of the process, and healthy respect not just in terms of investments and manufacturing, but also for CSR. And you will start to see we are already doing great work in CSR. You'll see an uptick in CSR activity in India, which we hope will translate into a sign of our commitment, including our own employees, to be engaged.
So what are the kind of offerings that you're coming in with this time at Aero Show?
We are very excited about the offerings. Again, this is a strong sign. We have focused more on actually bringing our products here rather than pure play advertisement, because our products and actions speak louder than words. We are getting two helicopters, state of the art, the H135 and the 145.
These are the one which will be bidding, which are part of the bids which you're doing.
These are both commercial helicopters and civilian helicopters, but they're dual use capable for paramilitary, and they're also being employed by multiple militaries. But these are not in the existing NUH bid or in the NMRH or the MRH bids. We have just delivered our first H145 recently this year in January. So we're very excited about that. And last year, the 135, we had utilized it in the Kerala floods through Red Cross for a lot of support. Now we're also bringing the C295, the CASA 295, which is the Aero replacement. And we hope the end users and many others can look at it and see the superiority of the product and what they're about to get in India, that will be made in India proudly with an Indian flag on it, made in India for the world.
The entire aircraft will be made in India?
The entire C295 will be, the factory will move to India. That is the Aero replacement program which we are talking about. Last but not least, our latest product launch, the newest product launch of Airbus globally, the A330Neo. We have brought the A330Neo to the Bangalore Air Show. It's a matter of pride for us to show that aircraft. It is a state-of-the-art aircraft. It has a brand new cockpit. It has a brand new engine. It has a state-of-the-art wings. It has an airspace cabin. It is environmentally friendly. It has a lower fuel burn. And as
are you getting any inquiries for that from Indian players?
So there is definitely interest for that aircraft. At this point of time, there is definite interest for that aircraft, and we are working with airlines on the planning stages of that aircraft. And what's more interesting is not just the inquiries for the aircraft, but the fact that long distance travel and international travel has still not started out of India. We're still where domestic travel was 5 to 7 years ago. And the A330Neo is a very unique aircraft. We look at a product portfolio and a product family approach. We start with the A320, the A320Neo. We go to the 321, which is a larger aircraft with longer range. And then we have the 321 long range, which goes all the way from India to Frankfurt or to Tokyo. And the A330Neo offers the same cost per seat as the A320 family. It has commonality in terms of the cockpit. All that it offers outside of many other benefits is a larger capacity. So we see a string of commonality and a string of, and an extension of the product platform. And as India starts to emerge more and more into international routes, longer range routes and higher capacity routes, we'll see the interoperability and the commonality between these aircraft. So even though most airlines are at the planning stages right now, the fact that only 1% of the Indian middle class is utilizing these long range routes, the growth potential that we will see will be extremely large. And I think as airlines start to plan, we will start to see a significant growth in the entire product portfolio, whether it's the 321, the LR, all the way to the 330Neo.
Anand, A320 when it came in, A320Neo, it was one of the most advanced in terms of and fuel efficient one.
Yes.
And Indigo was one of the biggest customers in India, and the entire IPO was backed by that. This is the most fuel efficient airline going to happen. And then it hit the Pratt Whitney engine issue. Is that issue behind us now?
I'm actually very pleased to talk to you about that. And I'd like to tell you that since the launch, as we've been reaching economies of scale with the A320Neo and economies of scale on both engine options. By the way, we are seeing us reach a maturity rate on this. Today, specifically since you asked me about the Pratt & Whitney engines, we are seeing a reliability rate of 99.6%, which is excellent. Even regarding the reliability issues that, with the launch of the engine as they've been, we've seen reliability issues since the launch go up in absolute terms. In the last 12 months, we have been very focused on working with our engine partners, the airlines, the regulatory authorities, very actively. And we have incorporated aggressively a number of software changes, a number of fixes, and also we've done a lot of, where required, a number of retrofits. What has led to is the Indian fleet has now been 95% retrofit, and in the next 2 months we will be 100% retrofit. Okay. These efforts have also led to a lot of fruition in many other ways. Over the last 12 months, we've seen, based on latest Pratt & Whitney reports that I have just received this week, between a minimum of 3 to 4x reduction in reliability issues, which is significant. Now, that reduction, where does it stand? If we talk about IFSD reliability or failure rates, we are right now at per 1,000 hours, the number of issues are 0.02. The global benchmark is 0.05. So we are significantly below the global benchmark that is monitored.
Does it mean that the delivery schedule for Indigo will now get fastened as the reliability issues are now receding? So
we have had delivery issues more from a supply chain perspective because of the ramp up. But the ramp up has been very impressive last year. Last year we hit 800 deliveries, which was the highest ever.
Yeah.
And we hope to surpass that this year. Last year we had done 67 deliveries to India, and we hope to have an impressive number of deliveries again this year. So I think we are really maturing even in terms of our supply chain and our deliveries, and we are showing an ambitious growth rate year over year. And we have over a backlog still of about 500 aircraft, and which is a few years to come. And we hope to continue to aggressively cut down on that backlog through deliveries to our Indian customers and the Indian market.
Anand, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us on Bloomberg 20.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
hopefully the next time we meet, it will be even more excitement to come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.